A new bill could allow the Kansas Corporation Commission to be exempt from the Kansas Open Meetings Act. Supporters of the bill say this will make the KCC more efficient, but opponents are worried it will set a dangerous precedent for making government less transparent. 12 News reporter Kel Chapman spoke with both sides about the impact that this bill could have. It's a story new at 9.
When state regulators vote on utility rate increases or other changes, those decisions are currently made during a public meeting. But a proposed bill could exempt the Kansas Corporation Commission from the state's open meeting law.
Anytime a couple commissioners want to get together, there's only 3 of them. So you get 2 of them together, you've suddenly got a quorum going on there, and they can't even get together to discuss basic information.
This bill would remove open meeting requirements for docketed proceedings and prohibit communication between the KCC and outside parties during those proceedings. How the KCC discusses docketed items could change, but things like public hearings would remain the same and continue to be open to the public.
The only thing that would be closed off to the public would be the decision-making process by which the KCC would determine, based upon the evidence, based upon the applicable law, what their decision should be.
Max Couch with the Kansas Coalition for Open Government and others against the bill say it sets a bad precedent and could lead to transparency concerns for utility customers.
Certainly a law like this would have a negative impact on the public's ability to know and their right to know and their right to be an informed electorate when it comes to things that public agencies are doing, including the Kansas Corporations Commission.
The KCC would still have to report to the public any decisions made behind closed doors. In Wichita, Kel Chapman, 12 News.
The Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications recommended the bill to be passed. Representatives deliberating say that the bill will be presented to the House on Wednesday.